Last year I had broken up with my ex-fiancé, and it had been a year. He was pretty toxic and I had fallen out of love a few months before the official split. Now I was craving a romance, since I am a hopeless romantic that feels the need to be in a romance in a way. My brother, who is 2 years older than me, has a group of friends that I always thought were cool. There was a specific person I found interesting since I got with my fiancé, but it never passed interest. I hardly, nor ever thought about him romantically or sexually out of pure respect for my fiancé. Let's call this person, G. But now I was single. I remember I was with my friends at a bar, and you know when you just start listening to your group's convos as a podcast? I was experiencing that. And suddenly, I was fully convinced I was going to have a romantic fling with G. Now, let me remind you of important details. G has never met me. The interest I developed was through stories and I hardly ever even seen pictures of him. He doesn't know me, he came out of a relationship, and I am my brother's sister, who would have guesses, so, he undoubtedly would never go for me. Let me just make a highlight. When I tell you, the odds were against us? I mean this. We are talking about my brother's best friend, this G. He never met me, and there was no reason for him to like me. Trust me, the respect he had for my brother defeated every chance I had with him. However, at the time I completely ignored this. Mind you, we hadn't spoken. Not a word. And I fully convinced myself I was going to have a fling with him. My 3 girlfriends called me crazy. I do tend to play parts like this for shits and giggles, but I was speaking from the heart. I went and told my closest girlfriends that we would have a fling. I felt it in my bones, I knew for sure, and it was already planted in the universe. Keep in mind I didn't know much about manifestation, and even less about how it worked. Important point. Fast forward a week or so, he adds me on Snapchat out of the blue. I don't even know how he managed to get my number, as I doubt he asked my brother, and I doubt he asked my sister, 'cause well, she's 12. And we started talking from then. Everything was going smoothly until I eventually manifested a breakup. As I was going through personal issues and inner conflicts, and since he was someone close to my brother, I didn't want to start something that I wasn't sure of. Key points: how I truly did it. The most important thing is to get rid of doubts. Literally. Just fucking believe, and don't believe it'll happen, believe it is happening, it has happened and it will happen. Just get into that feeling, it's a very specific feeling. The best way I can describe the feeling is, when you're a kid, and you wanted a specific toy, and you got the toy, how did you feel? That feeling of pure bliss, of fulfillment. Keep that feeling, hold on to that feeling, don't check in with the 3D. Truly don't, the 3D doesn't matter. The 3D does not matter. The 3D isn't real, it's just an illusion. It's you pushed out. That's irrelevant as long as your thoughts are about your manifestation and how it is here. So basically, don't think you're lacking it. Don't think if this happened it would be great. Think it has happened, and it was amazing. Doesn't matter if it's affirmations, visualizing, daydream, as long as you felt the feeling. Feeling is the key. In spring 2019, I thought I was in love with a guy, let's call him D, and we had an awful back-and-forth situation. In June 2019, I spent a couple of intense weeks journaling, affirmations, prayers, visualizing, and practicing gratitude while I was working on a mountain retreat in Turkey. Gratitude has long been an intuitive practice for me, and I can genuinely say that it seems to be deeply linked to the amazing things that happen in my life. Another key element is something I learned from my mother. When manifesting, I always use the phrase in some form, this or something better. So, my journal entries that June usually looked something like this. Dear Universe. Thank you for this day, and then I'd write a few specifics. Thank you so much for bringing D and I together. Thank you for bringing me a man who truly embodies the divine masculine, who makes me feel safe, who is inherently kind, who is a warrior for me and our family. Thank you for our deeply creative relationship, for bringing me someone who loves to read my writing. I'm so happy that we practice Thai massage together regularly and that I have a partner who will meditate with me. I love practicing Italian together too. Thank you for bringing me a man who is tactile and deeply affectionate and who always communicates openly and honestly with me. Thank you for bringing us our first daughter in spring 2021. Universe, if this is not D, thank you for bringing me a man that is all this and more. Now, by the end of July 2019, I started to let D go as we hadn't spoken for about 6 weeks and it all felt too painful. At the beginning of August, I went on an ayahuasca retreat and I kept hearing, "Stop worrying. The universe takes care of you." I finished the second ceremony and received a text from my longtime colleague, Antonio, wishing me a happy 35th birthday. In 5 years of knowing one another, he'd never said happy birthday to me. This kicked off a crazy series of events, and to make a long and very beautiful story short, D was none of those things. I 100% projected the things I wanted in a partner onto him. I am so thankful that we did not end up together. Let me tell you about Antonio though. He is the divine masculine to me. I have never felt safer, more loved and more supported. He is a warrior for me and our family. He is a crazy talented musician and filmmaker, and he's written 2 books. He utterly supports all my creative endeavors, and now we even own a production company together and have co-written projects. We welcomed our first daughter in spring 2023, so 2 years after what I wrote in the affirmation. We went on a Thai yoga massage training retreat together and he is ridiculously tactile and loving. We also meditate together, and meditation played a huge part in bringing us together too. It ultimately led him to cancel a gig with his band and take a road trip with me. Canceling a gig was something unheard of in his universe. And that was the trip we got together on. He is Italian. So, we don't practice Italian together so much as I practice Italian and he just speaks, writes it back to me. Our daughter is learning both languages. We have the most communicative and honest relationship, even more than I could have ever envisioned. This was something we both deeply craved after experiencing otherwise in previous relationships. So, all told, from practicing manifesting in June, I ended up meeting my love, whom I knew, but didn't truly know, if that makes sense, in mid to late August. Our relationship just grew and grew and grew, and we are both so grateful for this and now for our gorgeous daughter, who will be one very soon. However, like so many other people manifesting relationships seem to say, I initially got more than I bargained for. D got in touch with me in September 2019. He sent an intense love letter and it left me so confused at the time, but I was entirely honest with everyone. I practiced being fearless, because what was there to fear? Another ex also decided that he wanted to work things out with me at this time, so I had 3 men all suddenly professing their love to me that autumn. Honestly, it's not a situation I'd recommend. In the end, my initial confusion was probably wonderful for my relationship with Antonio because it meant that I took everything slowly, rather than diving headfirst into something, and this is probably why my relationship with Antonio grew so beautifully and organically. I wasn't needy in any way. I truly wasn't in lack. I was in overabundance. I definitely think gratitude and that idea of this or something better has been instrumental for me. Now, I'm off to make our daughter's first birthday cake. Wishing you all much love, in all forms, always. Remember, you've got this, or something better. You don't need to imagine a specific person or voice for inner conversations to manifest a goal. You can just imagine a voice telling you that you have what you want and it'll still work. In my opinion, inner conversations is one of the most underrated techniques. We have inner conversations a lot, but unconsciously, like having imaginary arguments with people or thinking of comebacks we could have said to someone who's insulted us well after the fact. And then we wonder why we have strained relationships with these people. Well, as conscious creators, we should generally strive to have more positive conversations in our heads because those conversations put us directly into the state that creates, or dissolves, relationships. This success story isn't about specific people, however. I had gained about 20 pounds over the last couple years by unconsciously having some crappy thoughts about my body whenever I looked in the mirror. I knew I was doing this, and I would try to imagine myself thinner, but then I couldn't stop looking in the mirror and thinking the opposite. I decided to just go on a diet and lose weight the old-fashioned way. I dropped 5 pounds, but I just couldn't stop being critical of my body. I would try to do affirmations and visualize, but I just felt too big no matter what I did. I got even more strict on my diet and started going to the gym every morning, but nothing was working. Recently, I noticed myself having a lot of inner arguments with someone. Every time I would think about them, I would immediately begin telling them off in my head, and it wasn't long before an actual fight arose. It occurred to me that I should imagine us having a more pleasant conversation, as I'd used this technique successfully with them a lot. While I was scripting this reconciliation, a thought popped into my head: maybe I could just imagine somebody telling me I looked skinny. I thought about the people I knew and tried imagining a natural-sounding conversation, but I felt a bit of inner resistance for some reason. I wondered if I could just imagine a conversation with no one in particular and see if it worked that way. So, in my head, I repeated the feeling of hearing, "Wow, you have a really nice body," and myself replying, "Aw, thank you." This was last night. Then this afternoon, I was at school on a break between classes. I was checking myself out in the bathroom mirror and noticed I actually do look a lot slimmer today. Then I walked out and was reading a poster, and one of my instructors walked by me, and then she turned to me and said, "You have a very cute figure," and she started asking me if I worked out and what kinds of exercises I did.